Welcome to this short video demo of Virtual Instruments Load Dynamics Enterprise, the most advanced storage test and validation platform solution on the market today. In this video, we're going to show you how a large financial services company used Load Dynamics Enterprise to compare the performance of 6 all-flash storage arrays. They used the data to build a cost-performance evaluation framework as part of a new storage validation best practice, allowing them to make intelligent procurement decisions based on real data. As you'll see, this opened the door to millions of dollars of savings. The customer wished to evaluate solutions from their existing vendor and new best-of-breed vendors in the flash storage space. They received 4 proposals from vendors who could meet all of their requirements. Those vendors all claimed that their flash solutions could deliver under 2 milliseconds response times, which was substantially better than the actual SLA needed. 2 additional vendors were eliminated for non-performance related reasons, but we'll include them in some of the performance charts you'll see later on. As you'll see, the 4 proposals varied widely in costs. This customer needed to understand the performance capabilities to support both their current production requirements and their anticipated growth over the next 3 to 4 years. As you can see, millions of dollars were at stake. Without a performance validation process, they were faced with doing apples and oranges proof of concepts, risking substantial under or over provisioning and wasting financial resources. Here's the top of the input screen, where we name the test and input the workload I/O parameters of this customer's Oracle-based applications. This is the first of 2 tests, the baseline test using I/O profiles of the existing application workload. Modifying the I/O profile is as simple as moving the sliders. Here we set up the average block size of 106 KB, made up of 64 and 128 K blocks. We just move the slider bars to the desired settings. As you can see, it would be very easy to do what-if scenario testing. For example, what would be the performance impact if the application used smaller block sizes? Data reduction is very important for flash-based storage systems as it can dramatically lower storage costs. It can also have a negative impact on performance even on flash systems. For this application, the customer set the compression ratio at 5:1 and dedupe at 3:1. The throughput load for this baseline test is 132 megabytes per second, representing the load on the customer's current array. For the second set of tests, the customer substantially increased this figure by a factor of 10 to see how the target arrays would handle their projected 3-year growth, essentially testing worst-case scenarios. After we have run the tests and saved the results, we can look and see how the vendors performed and even generate custom reports in the built-in report generator. Let's take a look. The customer wanted to see how the various products would perform under the heavy Oracle-based workload over a 4-hour window. As the results chart shows in our baseline example, although there were noticeable differences in response times between the vendors, all of them came in under 2 milliseconds latency. They all met the spec, even the non-finalists. The customer considered these figures to all be within their SLA window and better than the 9 to 10 millisecond latency they were getting from their existing array. So far so good, but the story does not end here. The customer also wanted to see how the various products would perform under a much heavier load, as they were anticipating a 10 times increase in the application workload over the life of the new array. Rerunning the tests was as simple as changing one figure in the screens you saw earlier. As the results chart shows, the differences in performance under these more demanding workloads is much higher. In this case, vendor A offered the lowest average latency, while vendor D performed the worst. This report shows throughput results. Note that vendor A offered the highest throughput for this workload with over 50% higher throughput compared to vendor B. And finally, this report shows IOPS results. Once again, we can see that vendor A was clearly the highest performer for this workload. But once again, the story doesn't end here. If it did, you'd buy vendor A. The performance of a storage system is most relevant when it is understood relative to its cost. Now, with Load Dynamics Enterprise, we can easily compare the performance of the various arrays for this specific application workload in tabular form, and then add the cost proposals from each of the vendors to see the cost performance rankings. For example, vendor A clearly dominates the performance specs, but at a price premium. Vendor D shows the best IOPS and throughput per dollar for this workload, but at a higher average latency. And vendor B appears to strike a pretty good balance with very good latency. Let's look at this on a graph. Here we see the various cost performance points relative to the current production storage performance using IOPS as our metric. As we can see, vendor performance differences for the same workload of 100 to 200% or more are not uncommon. This could easily mean the difference in acquiring $6 million of storage from vendor A versus less than $2 million for vendor D. Or the customer could choose a more balanced cost performance solution and go with vendor B. In this case, Load Dynamics Enterprise could save this customer nearly $4 million just for this one mix of workloads. With Virtual Instruments Load Dynamics Enterprise, it now becomes a data-driven decision process. But Load Dynamics Enterprise is not just for vendor bake-offs. You can utilize this platform for the entire lifecycle of storage, from pure technology evaluations to configuration optimization through problem resolution and including change validation. Our most successful customers who have the most cost-efficient infrastructures use Load Dynamics Enterprise every day. In the case of this customer, after selecting their vendor, they continue to test and use those results to refine their configurations, enabling additional savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars. To wrap up, Load Dynamics Enterprise is an easy-to-use performance validation platform that provides critical insight to help you make better storage infrastructure decisions. We make your storage engineers dramatically more efficient as they can quickly run a wide variety of tests that would simply not be practical with other tools. Load Dynamics Enterprise empowers you to rapidly innovate to both lower your storage costs and assure performance. Thanks very much for watching. For more information or to request a demo, go to virtualinstruments.com.